Hello and welcome to Personable, a podcast focused on speaking to the world's best, enabling you to become the best that you can be. My name is HarveyBracken-Smith, and today I'm honored to be joined by Tommy Hyland. Whether this is your first time listening or you're a returning listener, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who you'd like to listen to next. Tommy is one of the greatest blackjack players of all time. He's in the 2002 Blackjack Hall of Fame, and this is actually his second time on Personable. Many of the people listening absolutely loved his episodes, so we had to get him on for a second time. So Tommy, thanks for coming back on. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
Uh, Basically about the same old. Playing golf, not as well as I guess it was 3 years ago we did it, or
No, I think like a year and a half ago.
year and
Maybe
a half ago. Okay,
2 years, yeah.
yeah. Well, I've definitely gotten worse in a year and a half, but still playing blackjack. Still, I'm practicing more and playing worse at golf, but everything's good other than that.
Are you still winning at blackjack? Is your edge still there?
Yeah, the edge is still there. It's I would say blackjack. The landscape's a little worse than the last time we talked, but in general, there's still plenty of opportunity out there. I'm still playing about the same amount of hours a year.
Are you now able to go back to some casinos that you weren't able to go to before again?
I don't know if we how deeply we got into this
We don't have to
subject.
name the specifics. We don't have to name the specific ones, but like,
No, no, but I don't know how deeply we got into this subject. But I don't really believe that there are any casinos I'm not allowed to go into. I just, if I feel like I have a chance, you're not doing anything wrong. All you're doing is using math when you're playing. So just because the casinos claim that they have the right to kick you out, it doesn't mean that they do. And I usually, if I think I have a chance to play and have a chance to get a decent game, I'll go back. I don't deliberately go back just to be defiant. If I don't think I have a chance to play, I won't go back there. But yeah, I go pretty much. I try. I go where it's convenient and where I think I can get a good game.
how do you go about changing your strategy depending on the casino? Do you notice that more modern day casinos will use card shufflers more often? Like, how do you go about changing your strategy depending on what the casino does?
Uh, well, by there's like a fraternity of blackjack players or a network, and you kind of know what kind of game every casino's dealing, or not every, but the casino you're interested in playing, and it's easy to find out from you know what kind of game they're dealing, what the rules are, what the how many decks they use, things like that. You can find that out before you go in, and kind of go from there.
What you know, what can you give an example of like a specific casino or like a type of strategy, or at least how they might differ for someone that might not know how the different casinos will change their game?
Right. Well, there's two there's like two non-starter. We'll call them non-starters. There's two kinds of methods of dealing blackjack where you can't really beat the game. One is if they would change the payout on blackjack to 6 to 5 instead of the normal 3 to 2. You basically can't win at that game, or you could win so little per hour it wouldn't be worth it. And another thing is, like you alluded to earlier, if they have a continuous shuffler. That's fine if they have an automatic shuffler. If they if they have an automatic shuffler and they shuffle with that and put the cards in the shoe, and then just deal that shoe normally, you can beat that game. But if they have a continuous shuffler where the cars kind of just go into this hopper and they go round and round, where there's really no beginning and no end, it wouldn't do any good to count the cards because you're constantly starting over. There's no beginning and no end basically.
Could you explain the difference between the 6-5 and the 3-2? Sorry, I don't follow as someone that doesn't gamble.
Right. Well, one of the game's called blackjack for a reason. Blackjack's the basically the best hand you can get. A blackjack is a ace and a 10 value card on your first two cards, and uh, that pays 3 to 2. But about I'm going to guess it was about 20 years ago, some casinos started having that pay 6 to 5, and that doesn't sound like a big difference because you really don't get blackjack. You only get blackjack about once out of every 20 hands. But think of it this way: if you bet 100, you get blackjack once out of 20 hands. So every time you bet $100, instead of getting 150 for that $100, every time you got blackjack, instead of getting 150, you only get 120. So you basically get about 100 hands an hour. So 5 times an hour, you're getting $30 less. So it's costing you $150 an hour to $30 times 5. You're paying $150 an hour to sit at a 6 to 5 table, where if next door there was a 3 to 2 table. So it would be, and you're only betting $100 a hand, so that's a lot to pay. $150 an hour, uh, it's prohibitive, and the average recreational player doesn't realize that. It just says, "Oh, well, what's the difference? I hardly get blackjack anyway, so I'm getting 6 to 5 instead of 3 to 2." It doesn't. But if you think of it like that, it's real easy to see how devastating it is.
Why don't every casino use automatic shufflers? Why would casinos spend so much time surveilling people, but not just change the way that they deal the cards so they wouldn't have a card counting problem?
Well, basically, luckily, the recreational players, they hate the continuous shuffler. They want to they think about some of the ways they think are like a hot shoe. So they want to see the shoe get started. If they win a bunch of hands in a row, that's a hot shoe. It seems to them, it seems like the narrative seems to be that you can't really get on a streak on these continuous shufflers, because you don't when a bad shoe is over, then you have a chance for a good shoe. That's the way they think. So it's they're not very popular. They only really use, for the most part, luckily for us, they only use these continuous shufflers on small stakes tables, where they really don't care what the players think. They're just people that bet really small are just happy to be able to find a table. Most casinos have eliminated most of their small tables, and they only use these continuous shufflers on the $5 and the $10 minimum tables. It's very rare. You almost never see a continuous shuffler on like a $50 minimum or $100 minimum table. They're just so unpopular.
But why wouldn't, similar question, why wouldn't all casinos use the 6 to 5 payout? If they only want to attract more people that are not as conscious of what's going on, not as aware of the odds, do you think it would disincentivize a lot of their customers if they went 6 to 5 instead of 3 to 2?
Well, believe me, they try and get people to accept it, and there's competition, and some recreational players realize it's really bad, and there's been some publicity that's really bad for them. But the 6 to 5, unfortunately, is kind of spreading slowly. And there's definitely, since the last time we spoke, there's more of it, but it's very unusual for a casino to have all 6 to 5 blackjack. Some small casinos do, but if like a big, for example, Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, that's a famous casino. They have a lot of 6 to 5. They're one of the worst all around the country. The Caesars are one of the worst for the 6 to 5. They still don't have it on the bigger tables. All their $100 minimum and higher tables pay 3 to 2. They would net almost, and even a little lower than that. Most of their $50 tables would pay 3 to 2. They don't. The high rollers kind of realize that 6 to 5 is really bad.
One thing that I didn't realize as much after posting our podcast, I mean, obviously you're very well known within the blackjack world, was just how many people were going to be incredibly interested in like what it is that you do. Like, one stat that I often look at for podcasts is not just the number of views, but sort of how long people listen for. And it was almost like everything that you said, people were almost taking notes because they're, coming up blackjack players really interested in learning. So on that,
I wish my wife was still here to hear you say that. She doesn't listen to me at all. You're saying that people are hanging on my every word.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's good. Yeah, good.
So on that point, I kind of wanted to do this second podcast and ask questions as if I was in their shoes, to basically work out if I was starting out in the blackjack world, how would I learn from one of the greats? So I want to frame a lot of my questions around that. And one of the questions that I had is you talk a lot about this brotherhood where you can find the casinos where they're giving 3-2 instead of 6-5, and they're not using automatic shufflers, and they're not using as good surveillance, etc. How do you go about getting into either your brotherhood or another brotherhood? How do you find community in blackjack and in gambling?
That's a real good question. Probably the most, well, first of all, you can just Google, blackjack, card counting, blackjack basic strategy. You can find out a lot of information like that. But to delve deeper into it, the most popular thing, the most widely known thing, really the only successful uh, long time teaching thing is by this guy who's a, a frequent nominee for. He's young and he's a frequent nominee for the Blackjack Hall of Fame. So far, he's not in there yet, but he should be. He started this teaching program called Blackjack Apprenticeship, and if you go on that website, you can get a lot of information for free, and then you can sign up and pay for you know more stuff and classes and training sessions. And he's famous. He did a Netflix documentary called The Rollers: The Story of the Church Team. That's close to the title. It's something like that. And yeah, you can find a lot of stuff on his site. There's also a, a member of the Blackjack Hall of Fame, Stanford Wong. He started a newsletter a long time ago. I think somebody else took it over. It's called Current Blackjack News, and that's like BG21 BJ21.com, and you can go on there, and that's like a newsletter of all the. It gives you like little blurbs about updates, and it has a list of all the casinos in the United States and what kind of blackjack game they deal. Comes out every month.
But let's say, like, in terms of pure learning, right? Like, they've spent their hours scanning the internet, they found the common strategies. I would argue that, and you told me this last time, once you kind of have this base level knowledge of how to go about counting hearts, the next thing, the more interesting thing is, as I said before, where does or doesn't have the automatic shufflers, where has the better payout, which casinos have the less surveillance, etc. So, how do you actually go and find a group, more so not just pure teaching, but like-minded people who are also very good at counting cards?
Yeah, there's a lot of well, well, both Blackjack Apprenticeship and this BG BJ21.com. They list all the rules and the number of decks and if they use an automatic shuffle or not, if they pay 6 to 5. Both those sites have all that information. If you want to network with like uh, people that are interested in blackjack or people that are already accomplished at blackjack, you can do it through any number of sites. There's some. I don't really go on those sites, but there's some. Blackjack Apprenticeship has links to those, and there's like some site called the Discord, and there's all kinds of different ways you can network with other blackjack players.
What about your own specific brotherhood? Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, I have some friends that I've known for years that are playing, and I have constantly have people call me or email me or text me, asking me questions, or somebody has a problem, they're asking me about legal help. So I constantly am. I ran into I run into players in the casino. It's I just over the years, I guess I just built I talk to probably 40 or 50 different players a year, that, that are considered blackjack professionals.
Are there any like yearly meetings where everyone will get together and talk about gambling, and kind of their strategies? And also, how do you go about making sure that the people that you're meeting aren't people pretending to not work at casinos but actually work at casinos and just trying to get you your tips?
Right. Ironically, next week there's the famous Blackjack Ball. So, a bunch of have you heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Right. This real great guy, Max Rubin, who wrote a famous gambling book called what is it? I think it's Comp Blackjack or something like that. You know, and yeah, he hosts this Blackjack Ball every year in Las Vegas, and we get together then. I see some. That's the only time I see a lot of these, famous players or players I've known from for a long time. I see them at the Blackjack Ball.
So more so, right, blackjack. I think we've talked a lot about the strategy, and we can kind of see that, as what I learned from last time, it's more of a longer game, finding your edge over time and consistently playing towards that. When looking more at, say, like horse racing, or going out to other areas that you might gamble in, as I'm sure a lot of your friends at this blackjack ball will do as well. How do you go about refining your strategy when there are ever changing odds to things?
Um, well, blackjack you only have a really small edge, but the good thing, even though you have about a 1% edge on average, if you learn to be a good a professional sports bettor or a professional poker player or you bet horses professionally, your edge is bigger. But the good thing about blackjack is it's fast. Even though you only have a 1% edge, you get, like we said earlier, you get 100 hands an hour. So you're getting 1% 100 times an hour. Whereas if you make a sports bet, uh, if you're a really skillful sports bettor, you might be able to get a 7 or 8% edge on some kind of bets, which, is great. But, it takes 3 hours to play that one game. So you have to be able to find lots of bets in order to make a living as a professional sports bettor.
And how will sports bettors go about developing their edge? I mean, we talked a lot about how you made your edge last time, but how does a sports bettor make their edge?
Yeah, I'm no expert, but there's a lot of different ways. One thing is called line shopping. If you have, like, let's say as everybody probably knows, you can bet sports from your living room on your phone or whatever. And let's just say you decide you want to bet sports, and you download the DraftKings app, and let's say you like the Eagles this Sunday. So if you just blindly go to DraftKings, look at what the line is. Let's say the Eagles are giving 3 points. I have no idea who they're playing or how many points. But just for an example, say the Eagles are giving 3 points. If you go on DraftKings and you just play the Eagles -3, and you do that many times, you play some other games also, and you keep doing that, you're guaranteed to lose. If that's all you have, if you only have one sports book to bet at, and you just take whatever line they give you, you've got no chance to win. You want to do what's called line shopping. You want to have as many possible opportunities to bet. You want to find the best line on every game you're interested in. Uh, that's one. That's how you get started. You always get the best line that's available. Then you can, the really good guys, they build a model. They have all kinds of data. They put the data in the model. You have to have some stuff in your model that the sports book isn't using that would also, be relevant. You can't just put like, the Giants usually play well, on Thursday nights or something like that, because if you don't have a reason for it, if it's not really correlated with, if it's just something that happened randomly, it's not going to be of any value. You have to somehow find things that the sports book aren't using that can be correlated with, the result.
And aside from pure mathematics, because I'm sure like there's probably different approaches to building a model, how do they go about getting information? Because I'm sure that information is such a scarce resource, and as you said, games often take 3 hours. So if they're betting on like horse racing and football games and loads of different things, especially at a high level, how do they go about getting so much like critical information to build their models?
Well, it doesn't do you any good to just have a bunch of information if the sports books or other bettors have that also. You have to get information that nobody else has. That's not really the way you beat sports, by getting like inside information. Years ago, before the internet and before they had to, publish injuries and all that, I don't really, you have to, I would say, and like I say, I'm no sports betting expert. I would say, you have to have a way of evaluating a game that's outside the box that other players wouldn't do, other bettors wouldn't do, and sports books wouldn't do. You have to, if you think the Eagles should be uh, -4, and you're willing to lay -3, you better have a good reason why you think the sports books have it wrong and you have it right.
So I had a few questions that I asked people that listened to the podcast last time, wanted to know, and I thought I'd ask them one by one. The first one being, what personality traits cause some advantage players to stay in card counting, and some move to other advantage and give up on card counting?
That's a really good question. Well, and the reason it's a good question is most people do. Most people, that get, pretty much totally, or not. You can never be perfect at anything, but it's pretty much 99% perfect. If there's lots of card counters where I play 99% as well as them, or they play 99% as well as me. It's not like poker where there's a wide range of skill among professionals. Basically, everybody, the accomplished players know pretty much everything I know. But what uh, causes people to get out of it? One main reason, and I know this from a lot of the people I know, they get out of it because of the casino harassment, the countermeasures, it's kind of you have to. I guess you have to have a certain kind of personality to not mind being constantly screamed at, harassed, told you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, even though what you're doing is, like I said earlier, just using math while you're playing cards. And the casinos, some of them take it personally, some of them are nice about it, some of them are good sports. But you got to have a thick skin, I guess, would be a good way to put it. You can't be real sensitive, and if some casino says if you come back in here again, you're going to get arrested or something like this, you can't say, oh, okay, sir, I'll never come back again. I mean, you could say that, but you have to be willing to go back, or you're never going to make any money.
Well, something that I think that I'll ask the other questions in a minute, but something that you're quite good at is I feel like you know the law quite well, so that when they go and about intimidating you, if they say something which what you're doing obviously is legal, but they're saying, "Oh, you can't do that, you can't do that." I feel like a lot of new players would be intimidated by that because there's a information mismatch. So how should players, when they're being told you can't do that, differentiate between what they're doing in terms of working out, is what I'm doing legal and they're just trying to intimidate me, versus am I actually doing something wrong here and I don't want to get into further trouble?
Right. Well, the casinos accept the fact that card counting is legal, but they try and say that it's private property and they're allowed to have whatever guests they want on their property. Now they've lost that argument in 3 states, in New Jersey, Louisiana, and Missouri. They're absolutely not allowed to tell you to get off their property because you're skillful at a game. They do other countermeasures. If you raise your bet, they shuffle. If they recognize me in one of those 3 states, I can't play because I'll never get a bet out. They'll just shuffle whenever I raise my bet. But it's nice to know that you're not going to get escorted from the product by security. Now, in all the others in Indiana, the card counters lost a case. They won. They won in the first court, and then they lost in the state supreme court in a close decision. And Indiana, they say that the casinos are correct. It is private property, and they don't have to allow people on there that they don't want to. But every other state is a gray area, and as you might expect, the casinos claim that they have the right to kick whoever they want out in all these other states, and they don't. It's never been adjudicated. Most time, like they've arrested me for trespassing numerous times in some of these other states, and I've won every case except for one. I'd say my lawyer Pete Solano, and I've had the same lawyer for all these cases. except for some states that were far away, and we won those cases also. But Pete and I have won. I want to say our record is like 9-0-1. The one I'm going to call that one, the tie or whatever, is that in Pennsylvania at one time they had a state could get or a casino could get a lesser license. They could get a private license where everybody had to join when they went in there. They had to pay $10 for a club card or something like this, or a membership. They had to get a membership at the casino, and I believe there's one casino left in Pennsylvania that still has that, or there may be zero. But the place where I lost the case was one of these, membership casinos, which it isn't anymore. So I'm not going to count that as a loss. So I'm going to say that we're still undefeated.
Why have you been so passionate about pursuing this in the court of law? Because you've almost become an activist within the blackjack world, and I think that's part of the reason you're so respected. Is you've actually gone against the casinos where they've tried to intimidate you at times with violence, at times by trying to verbally say you've done something wrong when you haven't. What has kept you going to actually go about and win 9 cases and 1 draw against the casinos and put your money where your mouth is?
Well, I don't know. I believe in like right and wrong, and it's certainly if you ask, let's say that before these, in order for these casinos to exist, the either the public had to have a vote, or their representatives that they elected had to have a vote to permit them. Now, I think if the public knew ahead of time that the casinos were planning on saying, hey, anybody that's good at these games, we're going to kick out. We're going to threaten them with arrest. If they try and play again, then we are going to arrest them. I don't think the public would have ever allowed them to exist. I mean, you tell anybody on the man on the street, you tell them that they ask me, what do you do for a living? I say, I play blackjack, and then one thing leads to another, and you tell them that, sometimes you get kicked out for just playing blackjack by using math. And they say, that's not right. Nobody thinks it's right, but somehow these casinos have, a lot of money. They have lobbyists. They've got influence. And somehow they're able to kind of shakily maintain this, status quo where it's a cat and mouse game where they can arrest you or threaten to arrest you and then, drop the charges or lose the case, and they can just keep doing it to other people. And it's just kind of an ongoing thing. I mean, I'm indignant about it. I don't mind putting myself out there. I mean, I don't do it just to be an active, activist is a good word, but I try and choose my battles. I don't deliberately, if some casino said, hey, if you come in here again, you're going to get arrested, I don't go there the next day and go sit down and play in front of the same people. I'll wait till I think I have a chance to play. I'll go in there on a different shift. I'll look around to see if maybe I think somebody's going to recognize me. And if I think I have a chance to play, I'll try and play. And then I'll take whatever consequences, arise.
Why is your strategy to go in like more aggressively and to maximize the amount of money you can make versus trying to be more subtle over time and build up your gains?
That's a good question. Everybody has a different philosophy. You asked me earlier about why do some people, learn how to play and then get out of it. I forgot to mention that the the variance or the fluctuation or the swings are devastating because you have such a small edge. Imagine you're flipping a coin, and if you won, I'd pay you $49. If I won, you had to pay $50. Well, you could see how you might win for a long time, or even though I'm getting $1 more than you, I could lose for quite a while, and the swings are horrible. So uh, I'm going to try and get as much. I really like to get, you know, I'd really like to only pay you $48.50 on every flip. I'd like to get as big an edge as possible. I'll take a little more heat and a few more back offs in order to get a bigger edge. So when I do have a negative swing, I don't lose as much. And when I have a positive swing, I win more. If you play a lot of what we call cover or camouflage, you're going to have a lot uh, a lot more time can go by with you. You're going to have a lot lower what we call EV, and you're going to have a lot bigger EV is expected value. You know, instead of being able to win, say, $300 an hour, and you play a lot of camouflage, you might only be able to win $200 an hour, and your swings are going to be big. You're going to have your losing streaks are going to be longer, and you know, you still win money in the long run as long as you play aggressively enough to give yourself an edge. But sometimes people are so scared of getting kicked out or backed off, their edge almost totally disappears. They're playing so much cover, they don't have any edge anymore.
Can you give me an example, and you can make up the hand of like, you know, let's say like you choose the cards, but like how much money I should be betting relative to how much money I have per hand and per after you get in a like flip your card, if you know what I mean, like after you.
Right. Okay. This is a little. I'll try and do a simple explanation, but there's this thing that all high stakes blackjack players, or even lower stakes and medium stakes blackjack players should be using. There's this thing called the mathematical principle called the Kelly Criterion. It states that whatever edge you have, you want to bet that percentage of your bankroll. So at a at a good count, a relatively good count, but not that great a count, which would be a true three, you have about a 1% edge. So you want to bet, if you bet full Kelly, you want to bet 1% of your bankroll. So if you have $10,000, you'd want to bet $100. But the caveat is that at blackjack, because a lot of times when you bet $100, you have to make that bet might turn into a $400 bet because you might have to double down, you might have to split. Uh, you actually never want to play full, what we call full Kelly. You don't want to bet 1%. It's considered aggressive to even bet half Kelly. So if you had $10,000 at a true three, a sensible bet would be like $50. You follow?
Yeah, I follow, but $50 would still be half Kelly, no?
Yes. And that's what, and the Kelly criterion, I forgot to mention, the Kelly criterion says that that's the best way to maximize your profit. Okay. Is to bet according to Kelly criterion. If you if you bet double the Kelly, you're guaranteed, even though you have an edge, you'll eventually, can be mathematically proven that you'll eventually go broke. If the, you know, but that, there's a lot of assumptions, just taking the Kelly criterion at face value. It assumes that your max is unlimited, which is not the case. You know, in the casino, you can only bet the table maximum might be $500, it might be $5,000, but so and then because of but you have to divide the 1% edge by the chances of you having to put multiple uh, bets out there on that one bet, or that one bet turning into multiple bets. So you're basically supposed to divide the 1% by a certain amount, and most most teams or most pros play at about half Kelly or less than that, a third Kelly, something like that. And then you're guaranteed to make money, or guaranteed not to go broke, and you won't have to redo. Now you're making less money. The less you bet, the less money you make. But you're guaranteed for your bankroll. If you do everything correctly, your bankroll will eventually grow. You'll eventually double your money, then you'll double that, etc.
So let's say I've got $10,000. Let's also
Okay.
say that I wanted to go full time, and I haven't met someone like yourself, so I have no ability to get bankrolled. So my 10,000 is all the money I've got. I probably, what would be, we talk a little bit about like the theoreticals of being more camouflage versus going more, more aggressive. What would be the line between aggressive? Like, would would half Kelly be aggressive and a quarter Kelly be camo? Like, where's the line?
No, no,
Just to add on to that, if I only had 10,000, I might want to go even less than half Kelly because I might want to, bet more in the later rounds. So,
yeah,
if someone's got 10,000, what's the exact like plan for that?
they're right. Well, that's a good question, but I think you're confusing the camouflage with the Kelly. The whether you bet a quarter Kelly or half Kelly or full Kelly doesn't have anything to do with camouflage. It has to do with risk. Uh, the camouflage would be like if you're whatever percentage Kelly you decide to play. The camouflage would be if you were supposed to put out a $50 bet at a certain count, but the pit boss was looking over your shoulder and you thought he was counting the shoe down, and he realized the count was good. So instead of putting out $50, you put out $20. That would be camouflage or cover. Or when the count was bad and you just had a bunch of $50 bets, you left the $50 out there even though you had no edge. That would be camouflage or cover.
You're making it
So
stupid.
yeah, you want to, if you play enough camouflage, even if you're keeping the count perfectly, and you can also play cover or camouflage by, even though you know the right way to play the hand. If you think the pit boss is looking at you, you might not want to do that certain play. You'll say, "Oh boy, he's going to realize my card counter if I split my tens, or if I double down this 10 against a 10 or something." There's all kinds of plays that some counters perceive are a red flag, and the pit boss might not. He might be. It might look like he's looking at them, and they think that if they, take insurance or something, which insurance is a big edge. You can't. A lot of people are afraid to take insurance on a bad hand because it looks like you're a card counter. If you take insurance when you have 20, it looks like what a recreational player would do. If you have 16 and you take insurance, some counters perceive that as a red flag. Well, that's a huge edge that you're giving up if you don't take that insurance at the right time. Uh, yeah, that's kind of the idea. I play. If I had $10,000, I would bet as little as possible when the count was bad, which is the table minimum. Or if the count goes bad enough, I would leave the table, not play at all, or sit out until the count went good. And then I'd bet.
You sit like stand on the side, like having a drink,
Right. Yeah, you say this shoe's running bad. I'm going to sit out for a while.
and you just sit
And
at the table
you
and
sit there and you keep the count still.
do you pretend to
But
like chat to people and stuff? Like how? What?
yeah, you pretend. Oh, I got a phone call, and you stand up and you act like you're talking on the phone, but you can still keep the count. And then if the count goes good again, you can say, oh, you can pretend you hung up and get back. There's all kinds of little things you can do. Now, you can't do that every shoe. You can do all these different little things to avoid these negative counts. But if I had $10,000, I'd play super aggressive. I'd bet as little as possible when the count was bad, and whatever. If that $10,000 was replenishable, if I lost that 10,000 in a few months, I could have another 10,000. I might play more aggressively. I might play half Kelly or even a little higher. 60% Kelly. If it's $10,000 was all I had in the world, and I'd never be able to play blackjack again, I'd play very conservatively as far as betting, and I'd play very aggressively as far as my spread. I do everything I could not to put any money out when I didn't have an advantage, and make sure I put out exactly what I was supposed to put out every time I had the advantage.
Do you think there's a way to learn blackjack without being in the casino, or do you think that after you've got the base level of knowledge, you just have to throw yourself into the fire?
No, I think you can learn it all on the internet. Now they have all these practice deals with video dealers, and there's innumerable ways to learn. Off the internet. When I started, you can only learn from books. There were only a few decent books out there, and there was a lot of trial and error. I made a lot of mistakes when I started, but there's enough information out there that you can learn. Now, uh, you're still going to, your first time in a live casino, it's still going to be, you're still going to get thrown some curveballs, but you can basically learn without a bunch of table time. I mean, you can learn everything. You can basically have a virtual casino on your computer or whatever.
How I can recall when you started out and you got really good at this, you started to go about recruiting teams. Let's say you got an up and coming amazing blackjack card counter. Let's say they're like mid 20s, and they really want to build a career counting cards. How should they go about finding investors, pitching investors, and building a team?
unfortunately, the whole team thing. It seems to me now there are still some small teams out there, but the whole team thing seems to have gone away. There used to be these big giant teams, uh, but they've kind of dissipated. Most people play on really small teams, or they play individually, as far as I know. There's not really, you know, basically, there's not really a bunch of big retired blackjack players who are looking to finance up and coming card counters. It's the way I would explain it is it's not like golf or poker where somebody's a superstar and you want to bid for their services. Everybody can learn to be everybody at blackjack can be 95% as good as the next person. You can have somebody that's learned everything perfectly. I can take somebody that's never even heard of blackjack and within a couple months make them as good or better or almost as good as that guy. So there's the way you want to get teammates or invest. Well, the way uh, if you were learned how to play and you didn't have any money, you would want to most likely just talk to your friends, talk to your friends that had some extra money that were looking to make money off an investment. You explain it to them. You you know draw you draw up a plan, a game plan. Tell them what you would do. Tell them what percentage they would get, and maybe somebody would invest in you. But there's not a bunch of people just looking for blackjack players. I found that I did the players I did best when they didn't know anything about blackjack. That I was able to teach them, or one of the people I taught before was able to teach them, and uh, I found that to be much better than somebody that already knew how to play and had their own way of doing things. I had the most difficulty with those kinds of people.
So you think it's the same thing as we spoke about earlier in the podcast? Go and get into the right circles, learn, show that you can consistently do it well, and then go to people in the community, ask them to bankroll you, find people, as you said last time, like on the golf course, or people that are honest about what they do, go about bankrolling them and build from there.
Right. You don't even have to find somebody that knows how to play blackjack to bankroll you. Money's money. If you can explain the concept to somebody, uh, and they trust you, you probably, you might be able to, and you don't have to just get one person. You can have a consortium or something. You can get 7 people to put up, you know, 2,000 each, and you'll have a 14. Maybe you have 2,000, then you have a $16,000 bankroll, and then you you bet according to your bankroll, and then you split the proceeds, and then you start another bankroll. Now maybe you split the money when it doubles. Now you have 32,000. Now you bet twice as much, and maybe somebody wants to say, "Oh, I put up 2,000 before this really well. I'll put up 10,000." And it kind of snowballs like that. I mean, I don't. I know people. I know this one guy who's one of Colin's guys. He started with 20,000, and he decided he was going to uh, go around the country. Uh, he had a photography job, and he was going to go around the country. He's going to take a break from photography. He's going to take the 20,000. He's going to play as aggressively as possible. He's going to play in every casino until he got thrown out, and that's all he was going to do. And within I don't know if it was a year or 2 years, he ran that 20,000 to a million. He didn't have any investor. He just had his own 20,000. He's in it. He probably got lucky. He might only, but he should have. His expected value or his expected win was probably at least that half of that. He worked hard enough, and he played aggressively enough. He had a big enough edge that he played thousands of, you know, I've never played probably more than 1,000 hours in a year. I think he played 2,000 hours in one year. 40 hours a week. That's just table time. That's not counting all the hours he spent traveling and all the you know times he got thrown out and had to go to another casino and all this stuff. So so it can be done. That's one example. That's a real world example. You can find that. I think you can find his story on that Blackjack apprenticeship, and I know that to be a true story.
I find that when you're doing something well, whether it be blackjack or whether you're doing a sport, and kind of like the end is in sight. You know, you're about to win a golf competition and you're on the 15th hole and you're beating everyone, but you've got a few holes left. You kind of get to your head a little bit. You know, there's kind of that fear of success, but at the same time, if you're screwing up every hole and you've only got a few holes left, but you want to do well, it can kind of have a negative snowball effect. So snowball effect both on the positive and the negative side. And what I think is a key differentiator between uh, like a beginner blackjack card counter versus yourself is you've actually made a career out of it. You've got a family. You know, you've actually made this your life, right? So how do you balance that line between wanting to keep that edge, you know, with the high swings, the high variance, but also you've got to pay for your mortgage or you've got to, you know, your wife wants to go on holiday. How do you deal with the emotional side of your brain whilst also, you know, staying rational and staying true to your game?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that comes up. I mean, you can get really exhilarated after some of these wins and figure this is like taking candy from a baby. This is going to go on forever. But you gotta believe in the math. You gotta. I mean, the earliest book, what I would consider the Bible for professional blackjack players, is fittingly enough called Professional Blackjack by Stanford Wong, and it explains very well about these swings and how you have to bet according to your bankroll, and you can't be let's say you have a $50,000 bankroll, and you're winning and winning and winning. You can't go, and now you have a 70,000 bankroll. You can't go spend 40,000 on a car or a down payment for a house. And now you only have 30,000. Now you can't keep betting like you had a 50,000 bankroll because you have to, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to buy an expensive car. Like one pro put it this way. He says the money is money to a blackjack player is like tools are to a carpenter. Your money is your $100 bills are your tools. You need those to keep playing. And if you spend it, if you're constantly using it to go on vacations and you know upgrade your uh, housing or your get a nicer car, you know you, your your hourly rate at blackjack is going to go down, or your risk is going to go way up if you keep betting the amount you were before. You gotta keep your bank. You don't have to keep it separate, but you got to be judicious about how much money you spend. You can't be you can't be a huge spender until you have made a huge amount of money.
Having now done blackjack for a number of years, how do you go about, you know, working out how much to spend, you know, in your own life? Do you invest money? Do you keep like a portion aside the whole time just for blackjack spending? How do finances work in your own mind?
Well, I learned from experience and also from other people that I'm really conservative about investing in things other than gambling, things I know nothing about, like real estate or the stock market. Like I have a little bit of money in the stock market, but it's all just like generic. It's like index funds or something like that. I don't try and pick winners at stocks. I don't listen to other people's stock tips. I don't, say, this property's going to go up. I'm going to buy this. I have no idea, so I try and invest in uh, just blackjack or if I think it's a promising sports opportunity, I'd invest in that. But that's pretty much all I ever invest in.
Has
And
there
I try and keep my. I mean, I'm bad with it. I spend way too much money, but I try not to go crazy. I mean, my golf, I'd be a multi-zillionaire if it wasn't for golf. I mean, that's my bad habit. I spend not only the money I spend at golf, and it's the money, it's the loss of time that I could be playing blackjack that I spend on golf. So it's a big you know uh, money eroder, I would say, golf. But it's it's my that's more of a passion for me than blackjack is. I've been doing it since I was a young kid.
Was there, since you started out, has there ever been a time that you've not been as good, like financially from blackjack? And how did you go about getting through that time with your family and also saying that this thing that, has made us money, that's also now losing us money, is still the thing that's going to provide for our financial future?
Yeah, I've had some exhilarating wins and some devastating losses. I've had some ups and downs. Thankfully, in the last 15 or 20 years, they haven't been as dramatic. I made some foolish investments, trusted some people I shouldn't have trusted. Uh, lost a bunch of my bankroll, and then had to regroup and replenish it. I mean, my theory, and most smart blackjack players' theory, I think, is that when you're losing, you got to work harder. You got to reduce your stakes, and you got to work. You got to put more hours in. You can't be off playing golf when things are going bad. You got to, put the golf more on the back burner and try and hit the tables more. And then, you know, that's yeah, you have to when just the same as real life when you're, you know, when you're, when your finances aren't doing as well, you got to spend less. Have to go out and get a second job. It's the same kind of thing.
Is there, for the average person that goes to Vegas, I think a lot of people have this kind of idea that they at least have the thought that they can go to Vegas and make a ton of money. The average person that goes and gambles. Um, there's also a lot of people that will drink when they gamble, and then there's unfortunately people that get addicted to gambling and lose a lot of their money there. Would you recommend that the average person gambles in casinos? Has fun, but then there's kind of that line between having fun and spending too much money. Could you talk a little bit about, how the average person should look at Vegas and look at casinos that haven't had the eye-open experience that you have in knowing just how they go about getting their edge against the average person?
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm still amazed, even after doing this for more than 40 years. I still amazed at how some successful people that work so hard to make money are so willing to throw it away. I mean, there's a lot of things that people could do to lose a lot less, still have just as much fun. Uh, First of all, if we're just talking about blackjack, you never sit on a 6 to 5 table. That is absolutely devastating to your bankroll. You have a recreational player has very little chance, even for a weekend. If they sit on that 6 to 5 table for just a weekend, they have almost no chance of winning. And then so let's say they're willing to avoid that. Uh, they should learn basic strategy. It might take them the time it takes to fly out there on the plane to memorize basic strategy 95%. It probably might, maybe a round trip to Vegas, you could memorize the whole thing. But even if you're unwilling to memorize it, uh, you're allowed to put a little plastic card on the table in front of you and look at it. Uh, and if you have a 10, you're not sure how to play, you're allowed to look at it. No, hardly anybody does that. The casinos don't care. They don't mind if you play basic strategy, and that's going to give you a much better chance. You're going to have a good chance of winning in a short period of time, even though you're at a small disadvantage. If you don't like blackjack, I would play a game that's slower. That where you don't have as many trials. Bet sports. Like I say, it takes 3 hours for one bet. You're not instead of sitting down at a blackjack table where you have no idea what you're doing and just playing, guessing, trying to guess if the dealer's going to bust or if you're going to draw a good card or a bad card. Just get. That's how most people play blackjack. They just guess. You know, uh, sometimes they'll hit 12 against the five. Sometimes they'll stand on it. They just guess as to how they feel. You know, and that's and because blackjack's so fast, that's a really fast way to lose your money. So I would play some game that's slow. If you want to go to Vegas and have a good time, you can sit in front of the TV and root on a sporting event. And like I say, if you shop, like let's say you're staying at the MGM, and they have the Eagles minus 3, and you like the Eagles. You can look on your phone. You can see the line at all the different sports books. Maybe the Caesars next door has minus 2.5. Well, you basically have no disadvantage if you walk a few steps, bet the Eagles at Caesars instead of MGM. You can do all kinds of little things that don't take a lot of work to and still have just as much fun.
I want to ask you, I've got quite a few questions left, but I'm conscious of time. I want to ask a few short answer questions
Go ahead.
you. Um, Again, this is another question from one of the listeners from the last podcast. Who are the biggest who are the biggest influencers in the advantage stick world? How has card counting and advantage play changed over the decades?
Um, well, my biggest influences are some people that have been extremely, like I say, Stanford Wong's book was the Bible. I learned a lot from that. I know him a little bit, not that well. Bill Benner, who's one of the most successful gamblers of all time. He's made it. He started with. He was so. You asked about, you know, uh, being low on funds. He was almost. He was starting out with blackjack. He was struggling. Uh, he's just getting unlucky. He was playing really well, but he was about to. He went out for. He was going to play another week with his, really low bankroll. And if it didn't go, he was going to take a job at Burger King, scraping the fryer on the graveyard shift. And one of the sessions he went out, he met a blackjack player that decided to finance and put him on a small team, and everything went from there. Now he's probably the most one of the 3 or 4 winningest gamblers of all time. You know, close to a billionaire if he's not a billionaire. And that's from horse racing. The principles he learned at blackjack, he applied to horse racing. And he's been doing that for 30 years. And I think at the last Blackjack Ball we had, there was only, not the last one I went to. I haven't been there the last few years because they had moved it to the summertime, which was too inconvenient. It messed up my golf schedule if I had to go to Vegas. So I didn't. I missed the last few, but one of the last ones I was at, there was about 100 people there, and I think 5 of them were, reputed to be billionaires, and they all got their start with blackjack. They didn't. None of them play blackjack anymore, but that's how they start out. They did that when they were young. So.
Another question. I've got two more from listeners and then a few more from me. Did you focus on pitch games or shoe games that offer surrender? Did you ever sue casinos for personal injuries?
Yeah, I mainly played shoes my whole life. I only played a little bit of uh, pitch or single deck or double deck blackjack out of the hand. I've always played shoes. And since these are short, we can just leave it at that. I mean, I could get into the reasons why, but since these are going to be short answers, I'll just say I mainly played shoes my whole life.
And what was the second part? Did you ever sue casinos for personal injuries?
Yeah, lots of times. Fortunately, I never got badly injured. I got roughed up a couple times, but I sued them for mostly false arrest, harassment, you know, uh, emotional distress, which, emotional distress sounds like a phony thing, but when you're, locked up and put in handcuffs, that's distressful, and I never got any big settlements. I never got, all my, uh, I think, none of my civil suits ever went to trial. They were all settlements, but I got small settlements at all of them. We never got zero in a civil trial.
And the last one from a listener. Do you ever get nervous recycling trespass properties? Also, do you ever get more nervous when they're tribal owned?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I get nervous, but I kind of, this sounds weird, but I kind of force myself, to go into casinos that have threatened to arrest me or have, quote unquote trespass me. I force myself to go in there because I think it's the right thing to do. I don't think they have the right to do this. It's wrong. It's wrong to kick people out for being at a game they freely offer to the public. Like I say before, if all the particulars of blackjack were going to get were known before they were allowed the casinos were allowed to offer blackjack. If it was known to the public, if they got good enough, they were going to kick people out and have them arrested and stuff like this. Uh, they wouldn't be allowed to do this, and so I forced myself to go into these places. And yes, the main thing I'm not worried about getting injured at these tribal casinos. I'm mostly worried about not getting paid. That's why would be more reluctant to be an activist when it comes to Indian casinos. I'm more worried about them confiscating my chips, and whereas if a normal casino did that or a state regulated casino did that, I could sue them and get the money for sure. They have no right to take my chips or my money. Whereas a tribal casino, first you have to go to tribal court, you know, and I don't know. I've heard a lot of horror stories with tribal casinos. Most of the pros I know, or virtually every pro I know, is willing to play in tribal casinos. And in fairness, some tribal casinos are great. They have a sense of fair play, and they treat you better or just as well as the state regulated casinos. But some have a reputation of you know uh, trying to cheat you and not to pay you, and do all kinds of bad things. And as you might expect, those casinos don't do very well anyway. If they're a big tribal casino, like we'll say a famous one might be Foxwoods in Connecticut, they've got a sense of fair play. They say, hey, come on, Tom, we told you before, don't come back in here. They're never going to try and steal my money. They'll say, okay, cash your chips up, and you know, don't play anymore. Something like that. That's the professional way to handle it, and not necessarily the right way. I don't think they should be able to tell you to stop playing, but that's kind of a way you can stomach. But there's tribal casinos out in the middle of nowhere where people have gotten their money stolen, and they have to. Some have never gotten it back. Some have had to jump through all kinds of hoops to get it back.
Do you think that casinos are a net benefit or negative for society? And if you think a net negative, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
Well, I would say, you know, they're a net negative. I don't really see. I mean, if you a lot of times they'll say how they create jobs. Well, I'm sure society would be much better off if the jobs they create, if those people were doing some other job. It doesn't really. There's probably a lot of smart, and talented people that are just dealing cards like a robot 8 hours a day. I don't really see much. Every argument they make, how they benefit society. I think there's a argument on the other side that says they make society worse. I mean, all the people that have lost their house, committed suicide from, gambling losses. There's doesn't seem to me to be. That's why it's so satisfying to beat them. You're beating people that deserve to be beat. They need to be beaten. I guess.
And so the second part of that question, if casinos are a net negative and they were taken away, and you were, say, my age and doing your career again, what other career do you think you would have pursued?
Yeah, I originally thought. I majored in political science in college, and I originally thought I might like teaching or something like that. And I actually did. In the early days, I actually, you know, did teaching. I taught people how to play blackjack. I taught a lot of people, how to not, and I didn't take money for that, but some of those people played for me and stuff like that. So I probably would have been, if I was your age and there was no blackjack, I probably would have been some sort of teacher. I might have worked at a golf course. Who knows? It's hard to say. I certainly wouldn't want to do it over again. I'm happy with, unless I could have been good enough at golf to be on the tour. I probably would have rather done that, but this I certainly wouldn't want to do something else unless I had to.
You might think this is quite cool. One of the guests I had since we spoke was Justin Rose.
Oh yeah, I love Justin Rose.
Yes,
He's really he's you downgraded as far as IQ points when you have had me on rather than him. He's a smart guy and he's a great player.
Yeah, no, he's a very smart guy. And he's done incredibly well this year, coming second in the Masters, winning the Ryder Cup, um, and some other big things. So I'm gonna have
Well, the other thing is at age 45, what he's doing is incredible, absolutely incredible. I can feel it when I play. Even I'm playing against 50-year-olds. I'm 69 now, and I can't even come close to. And I see these other 45-year-olds playing against some of these college kids, and these guys used to be great players. These 45-year-olds, and they can't come close to beating these college kids. How he's doing it takes an incredible amount of ability and dedication and practice. And I know he works out. He's got his own physio trail, right? Yeah.
yeah, 100%. A few more questions. You mentioned that people send in emails to you and that you meet 50 other players in the year. What are some
Well, I said I speak to 40 or 50. I don't meet all 40 or 50 in one year.
We'll speak to? What are some questions that these people often ask you?
They kind of most people ask. I also speak at these blackjack apprenticeship get-togethers. They call them blackjack boot camps. I speak at some of those, and we have some Q&As, and they ask a lot of the same questions, like uh, you know they ask legal questions, and I tell them I'm not a lawyer, but they ask me where the best games are, which obviously if I don't specifically some say what state do you think's the best for blackjack, and that's varied over the last few years. They asked me like you asked earlier, do they I prefer pitch games or shoe games, all the and then a lot of times somebody will ask a question you're not expecting, but most people ask the same kind of questions. You know Another ongoing question is whether should you play rated or unrated. In other words, should you get a player card or not get a player card. These are and now there's all this stuff about there's a lot of dark cloud, not a lot, but there's a couple dark clouds on the horizon for blackjack players. A lot of this facial recognition is getting really bad. Like I could just walk through the door of some casinos that and that I've never been in before, and somebody will come over within a minute and say, "Hey, Tommy, you're not allowed in here." This would have never happened 3 years ago when this facial recognition wasn't as hadn't reached its peak yet. Maybe it hasn't reached its peak. Maybe it's going to even get better and better and cheaper, and eventually it's going to be really hard to get a game. And then there are a lot of casinos now, which never happened in the United States. A lot of casinos require an ID at the door and stuff. That's a bad thing.
Is there a way to change your appearance or anything like that, or do you think the facial recognition will always pick up?
Yeah, I think that right now there's probably a way to beat the facial recognition. There may eventually not be a way, to beat it, but it may be too expensive for the casinos. It may, who knows? Usually I take solace in the fact that card counters have always been able to stay a couple steps ahead of the casino. Whenever the casino countermeasures one thing, we come up with something new to counteract that, and I think that'll be the case. I think blackjack. You'll be able to make money at blackjack for quite some time. Whether you will be able to do it in 30 years from now, who knows?
How did you go about making a name for yourself within blackjack?
I didn't deliberately try to do it. I ended up. It was mainly because that my I guess my indignant feeling indignant about you know them arresting me in Atlantic City is how it started. I try to get some publicity about it. I went on a radio show, had some newspaper articles written, a magazine article, and that's kind of how it all started. Nobody would know who I am from blackjack if it wasn't for some of the things that the casinos did to me. I was mainly trying to get sympathy and to stop them from doing it that I, kind of went out and got this publicity. I didn't deliberately try. I wasn't trying to sell anything. I didn't deliberately try and make a name for myself so I could pitch a product or something like that.
What's a question that you're not asked enough?
So, uh, you know what? I don't know if this is exactly to your point, but I'm really amazed that more people don't do this. I see people that hate their jobs. They've seen the success I had. They've seen the success that some of the people that I taught at the golf course had. And then, even though they went on to do other things, and they're smart and they keep working this job that they hate, and they don't try and do this at least part time to get started. I'm amazed that there's probably only, if I had to guess, I'm going to say there's only, this is a wild guess, but it's it's close. It's not 10% or 10 times as much. I'm going to say there's only 200 full-time blackjack players in the whole country or in the world. There's not many of them, and it's not that it's easy to do, and you can make quite a bit of money.
How should, whether it be blackjack or any entrepreneurial pursuit, how should people go about doing the appropriate risk assessment, but also motivate themselves to take a risk which could pay off very well for them?
You just have to, like, I'm no math genius or anything. You just have to believe the math. You just have to read about it, and you have to believe the math. I mean, it's easy to do. You can start with relatively little money. It's hard to start out. When I started, you could have probably started with $500. The edges were bigger, the minimums were lower. It'd be hard to start out with $500, but you could start with a relatively small amount of money, and you just have to believe the math, and you have to do everything like you're supposed to. And you don't have to. I failed geometry and or failed or had to go to summer school for geometry and algebra. I'm no math genius, but I believed in math. I always, as soon as I read like Stanford Wong's book or some other books, I could see that it made sense and it was right. And you just have to believe it and just go out and do it. Uh,
How do you balance focus, fear, and excitement when you're in a casino?
um, I think I only feel all three of those emotions to a very very little bit. I'm usually thinking about.
Or maybe when you start
You,
off, I mean more for the general person
oh
who doesn't,
yeah, when you're first starting out, it's exciting, and you're a little afraid. You've heard all these stories about people getting barred, and the wins are exciting, the losses are really depressing. But eventually, like I say, I'll go back to believing in the math. You just have to keep doing it, and you have to talk yourself. The thing you don't want to do when you're first starting out, you have a tendency to counting how you're doing. It's like the old song about you never count your money till the dealing's done, the Kenny Rogers song. But you're constantly looking to see how much you're up, how much you're down, this that. You just play. You just put the time in, play as well and as fast as you can. Just put the hours in, and just eventually all these emotions will dissipate. Whereas eventually you go in there and it'll just be like another day at the office.
If I was to ask someone in 100 years' time, how would you want to be described and what would you want your legacy to be?
Um, I don't know. Just I like that. I believe I have a reputation for being honest, being approachable, trying to help people. Uh, so I hope that people think of me like that.
And you can look at any time frame you want, but what's next for you?
Boy, I just hope I keep getting to do what I'm doing. There's not really any. I mean, now besides blackjack and golf, my passions are my dogs and dogs in general and my grandkids. I'm really anxious to see what they end up doing. I think you talked to my granddaughter after our last podcast. She's going to school in Spain, and my grandson's about to start college. So I'm really anxious to see what happens to them. I hope around long enough to see that, and You know, I've got my son and my nephew that are really good at golf. I like to. I hope they have some more accomplishments in golf and in other various other things in life. So yeah, I got a lot to look forward to.
And my last question, and I ask this to every guest on Personable, is what is one thing that you would want a listener to take away from this episode?
Um, I would say that I like them to come away with the feeling that I'm fighting a good fight. That it's not all about the money, but it's about the money. It's about making a living, but I'm fighting a good fight. Even though it's not readily seeable that what I'm doing is, you don't think of a blackjack player as being noble, performing a service. I think it is. Like I say, I think these casinos need to be beaten, and we're doing the right thing. We're playing. We refuse to be intimidated, and I'd like them to take away that we're fighting a good fight, I guess.
Well, thank you very much for coming on Personal today, Tommy. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope that anyone listening, whether the first podcast or this one, that I was able to help ask a lot more of your questions. And I feel like this is much more of a guide for someone that actually wants to go into consider card counting as a full-time career. Can actually go about the steps to do so, from having your initial bankroll to how much to bet each hand, to how to get into the communities, how to find mentors, how to find like-minded people and build up over time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope to have you on again in the future and to keep learning more from you. So thanks so much for coming on, Tommy.
Well, it's fun. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.